All right, people, let's get this rolling. Episode number 39, Submissions and Slashers podcast. I am your host, Travis Brown, from the illustrious family known as Horror Movies Uncut. Hope you guys are doing fantastic. Happy Mardi Gras weekend for the lovely people of St. Louis, Missouri. Mardi Gras actually goes on right behind me in the Soulard neighborhood. It is Sunday, February the 19th, right around 7 o'clock in the evening. Here is what you need to know on episode number 39 of the Submissions and Slashers podcast. On today's episode, first thing we're going to be jumping into is an exclusive interview with our dear friend Patrick Rhea. We talked about this on the last episode. We'll be talking about his latest film, They Wait in the Dark, and a couple other things he's got going on and why he kind of is one of the person who I feel really exemplifies what independent genre filmmakers are. We've got a review for the film American Cherry. Jill Six teases some new photos from the set that she's working on. We posted something about that earlier today. House of a Thousand Corpses has got their 20th anniversary. We got some quick thoughts on that. We're going to give a review for the film Sound of Silence. I'm going to be talking to the gentleman behind this film later this week. I'm very excited to talk to them. They're called T3. It's a collective of filmmakers, and they have a nice little film that'll be coming out in March called Sound of Silence I want you guys to check out. We'll be giving some quick thoughts about what happened at the Santa Barbara International Film Festival. The Banshees of Inisherin and Tar looks like they're cleaning up house out there. And then, of course, what's coming out this week that you need to know. What you also need to know is where to find us at. That's at HMUNCUT.com. If you need to find us on any of the social media platforms, that's the same thing, at HMUNCUT. Submissions and Slashers is rolling. Episode number 39. Don't you go anywhere. We'll be right back with that exclusive interview with Patrick Rhea. And I am so very, very happy to have you on. So I appreciate you being on today with my podcast, Submissions and Slashers. And it's amazing to talk to you, sir, because I always tell people there's certain films that I will always talk about when people ask me about independent horror, and they want to kind of know the ins and outs and the differences. And to this day, man, Nailbiter is always one of the films I talk about.
Really?
Oh, yeah. And I don't know if you remember, but we did an interview through email a very long time ago.
A very long time ago.
Oh, yeah, man. So it's an honor and a blessing to be able to talk to you face to face again, man. So first and foremost, I always got to ask, how we doing today? How we feeling? How's life going right now?
So far, so good. I did warn Caitlin that my 5-year-old daughter, I'm bribing her. I'm making sure she stays upstairs.
Okay.
So that she doesn't interrupt. But if she does interrupt, she's super cute. So
We'll tell her that if she interrupts, that I also train young kids, and we will make her do burpees if we see her on camera. So
okay. she needs some training. That would be a good thing for her.
She might get a kick out. All right, so we're talking about They Wait in the Dark, man, and I'm super excited about telling people about this film. I've had a chance to watch it a couple times. You know, one of the things that always intrigues me about when I see your name attached to a project is I know there's going to be great storytelling involved in the project. So first and foremost, tell me a little bit about how They Wait in the Dark came to be, where the ideas came from, and how the whole project manifested to what we're seeing right now.
Sure. Well, it's funny because it kind of started with Megan Flynn, who's the main producer. She reached out to me, and we've been friends since like 2008. She was actually in a couple of my short films.
Okay.
And she's like, I'm turning 40 and I want to make a feature. I'm like, great, let's do it. So, you know, she says, okay, here's our budget. Can you write something that's tailored to that budget? And I'm like, absolutely. And I've always wanted to do a haunted house movie. Yeah. But, you know, everything's been done to death. And so I was trying to find a new vantage point for a haunted house movie. So I wanted to do something where the main character was kind of trapped in a situation where, hold on, sweetie. I told you.
Daddy's got an interview to do.
I gotta do an interview, sweetie. I'll be up in a second. Go ask mom. Go ask mom. You can take the paper.
I don't.
Anyway, so the idea was basically that she's on the run from her ex-girlfriend, which I thought was an interesting idea.
How
Okay, hold on. I will just write this really fast. I'm sorry, guys.
No, you're fine, man. Hey, I got a 14-year-old, so he's texting me right now about picking him up for basketball practice.
Stairs.
So
That's an N. Yep. She wanted to learn how to spell the word American.
oh, okay.
So
right.
yeah, I mean, the basic idea was to have a threat from the outside and a threat from the inside, because one of the things that I always, whenever I'm watching a haunted house movie, the second there's some supernatural element, I'd leave the house. I'm kind of like, okay, I'd move out, and that would be the end of it. And so I mean, Poltergeist is probably one of my favorite haunted house movies of all time, but the element of them staying in the house is important because that's the only place that they can communicate with their daughter. So for me, I was like, I need to create some reason why she doesn't leave this house. Right. So she's on the run. She's hiding in her old, family home, and some secrets start to be revealed. And I wrote this movie specifically for Sarah Maguire because I had worked with her on several films. Okay, she's in a couple of my short films, and then she was in I Am Lisa, and she is in The Stylist. Yeah. And so she's done a lot of great work. And I knew for a fact that she was going to nail it. So I wrote this movie basically around her, knowing that she was going to be the lead performance. And our schedule was tight. We had 12 days to shoot this movie, which, is not a lot of time to make a feature film. So I really had to make sure when I was writing it that it was economical, in the sense that I'm like, okay, we can't do too many locations. Mm-hmm. We set basically most of the movie inside the house. Some of the movie was shot in Kansas City, Missouri. So we had like the diner scene was in Kansas City, Missouri. Yeah. And the gas station was in Leavenworth, Kansas. Which was funny because we had to shoot that scene while the gas station was open, because I mean, obviously we're a low budget film, so we had to find a way of working around actual customers, which was interesting. Mm-hmm. And then we found a house outside of Topeka that was abandoned, but I knew the owner, and they had just left all this stuff inside of the house. So it was set up perfectly, because I was like, it almost was too dirty in there. So we had to make it safer for everybody. So we basically had to clean it up just enough so that it didn't look too clean. Mm-hmm. And it worked out really great.
Awesome. So, and it's great. One of the things that I've always loved, being a Midwest boy, we're both Missouri guys. I'm St. Louis, you're up in Kansas City. Yeah. Like I love how I can always tell in your films that you have that Midwest look to all your films. You have that, like, I think one of the best things that a storyteller can do, and I think you would agree with me when we think about guys like Stephen King and whatnot, is they bring you into their world.
Right, and Maine or whatever.
You do a great job of doing that. So you can tell that's going on in the film. Now, one of the questions that I wanted to ask you is, it seems like parenting is kind of this like huge underlying thing going on in They Wait in the Dark. Is that by choice, or is it just something that kind of organically happened as the story was being written and put together?
I think it was a combination of the two. Like I don't want anyone to see this movie and go, man, he must have had a bad childhood. My childhood was great.
Yeah, two gay parents.
I have the most supportive parents of all time. So that. Right. So, some of it was organic. I think that the running theme is ending the cycle of abuse in the film. Yeah. And so I think that's the spinal cord that I kind of worked off of in terms of what is this movie really about? And so, because I feel like every horror movie has to have something that people can relate to. And I feel like that was something that, a lot of audience members can relate to and attach themselves to. For
sure. And that kind of leads into the next thing that I wanted to talk about, which is do you feel, as a filmmaker these days and as a writer and all the projects that you're constantly working on, do you feel that there's any pressure, social pressure at all, to have to include these days an interracial couple, or a interracial adopted child, or a gay, lesbian, LGBTQ couple? Do you feel like it's important to have these figures represented in the films. And one of the reasons why I'm thinking about this is because like you and I both have had friends, you know, through and through in the LGBTQ community. And it's not like they have not made films themselves that voice these same things. But one of the things about They Wait in the Dark that I feel like is very intriguing that you never get spoken or talked about is when I talk to my friends in that community that talk about abuse in their own community from their own partners. So I feel like it's very strong for you to have that element in this film. And I'm kind of curious to how that also came to be in the film.
Well, I mean, that's one of the things that I thought was important was representation in the film. I definitely think that, and I don't ever feel pressure about it. I think it just happens organically. I feel like it needs to be there. And with the in terms of the relationship, I think the important thing that I want to tell people is like, you know, yes, they're lesbians, but that isn't really important.
That's not the story.
That's not the story. What the true story is that there's this cycle of abuse happening. Every relationship can be abusive, no matter what. And so I think for me, and again, both my lead actresses, Sarah and Lori, are part of the LGBTQ community. So I felt like it just all fit together in that way. Right. So.
Awesome. And tell me
I never feel any pressure. I don't feel any pressure about that.
Perfect. I love hearing that. I feel like that what that speaks volumes to is just your awareness that you've already had like to just making sure that everybody knows that they have a story to tell. Everybody has a story to tell. It does not matter where they're coming from. They have a story to tell. So I think that's something that will allow people who are not too privy to that community to actually get an understanding of. So I think it's actually very monumental that you have something like that in your film. So
thank you.
The thing that I'm curious about is the interaction, the back and forth between your two leads, because even though they are separate for most of the film, there still has to be this chemistry that needs to be created for that believability that they were a couple, right? So I'm curious, like, how were they together? Was it anything that they did with themselves to make sure that they kind of had that established of, hey, there's somebody? Because even when you're first, and I'm going to give away any spoilers in the film, it's very, very early in the film, you're just thinking that our lead is just running from something.
Right.
And it's terrifying her.
Right.
So I'm curious if they did anything, or if you knew if they did anything outside work-wise to make sure that they created that connection, even though both girls are not really together for a majority of the film.
Absolutely. So, I always tell people filmmaking and directing is 75% casting. So if I get the right actors, I'm going to be in good shape. Luckily, they've known each other for a while. So like they everybody on set, minus obviously Patrick, who plays Adrian, everybody knew each other for the most part. So there was some established chemistry already because they were already friends. So that helped in that situation in terms of them feeling like they have chemistry off camera, because they really do know each other in real life and they're friends. So that helped, I think. It wasn't Lori, actually, Lori lives in Paris now. So good for her. But it was funny because like she used to live in the Kansas City area. Obviously Sarah lives in the Kansas City area. So there was a rapport that happened ahead of time. And that was definitely something that I kept in mind while casting. I'm like, look, these people know each other. Yeah, they're going to be able to kind of have a built-in chemistry already.
Yeah, which is great. Yeah. Okay, so tell me a little bit about the response that you're getting so far from the film. Is there anything that's surprising you when people are seeing the film that you didn't even think of when they're telling you their thoughts and some of the early reviews that you're seeing from the film? Is there anything that's kind of popping up that you're like, wow, I didn't even think that was a thing until now?
Well, it's surprising because obviously a lot of people who are like really good reviewers are catching a lot of the nuances and a lot of the themes that we were trying to establish in the film. I had a guy reach out to me last night who watched it, and he said, the ending of the film, without giving it away, kind of changes the way you look at that first scene with her in the gas station when she sees the policeman. because you think it's for one, it could be for a couple of different reasons why she's
Right.
scared of seeing the policeman.
For sure.
And I thought that was interesting because honestly, I did not think of that. I was like,
Yeah,
you're right.
that actually makes a lot of sense now that I'm replaying that last part.
It recontextualizes that scene, and I was like, okay, yeah, all right. Of course, I was like, yeah, I know.
I made this film, of course I know.
Yeah. So, you know, I think that obviously there's always going to be reviews that are missing the point, I think, of the film. I had a couple when the film was on the festival circuit. There were some comments made about how they're like, well, you've made lesbians look like villains, and I'm like, that's not at all. Obviously, that's not at all what we were going for.
Yeah.
And I think they didn't see what the true story is. You know, they just were looking at some superficial thing, and that's, you know. So I'm happy when I'm reading the reviews, like the New York Times gave it a positive review, and then I read one this morning that I thought really got it, and it was a very well thought out, well balanced review. Obviously, you know, you run into a situation where you're making an independent film. Like, this was a very, very small movie, so you're always going to have people who say, well, you know, it feels like a low budget movie, and I'm like, well, it is. And,
what it is.
You know, we had a very tiny crew. You know, we were able to get the film shot in a small amount of time with a small crew, and yeah, I mean, but I think we did a good job of making it look more mainstream, I guess.
More mainstream, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. So, yeah, I'm just happy that some of the reviews are really catching on to what we were going for.
Yeah.
So pleased about that.
Well, it makes me happy too, because like I was having a conversation with Damian Leon the other day, and guys like you, him, Mike Mendez, guys like that who've just been like pushing through the independent film festival scenes and stuff for like the last 20 years or so. And I think we are at a point now, which is why you're starting to get these questions where you're having all these people who are normally just, you know, so stuck on going to the mainstream movies. Now they're starting to ask like, hey, what's up with this Terrifier? What's up with this Skinamarink? What's up with this? All these films that these independent films where it kind of goes back to like what I think Eduardo and those guys did when they came out with Blair Witch, where people were like, okay, now we want to see more of the stuff going on in this independent stuff than we're seeing in the mainstream movies. Now, people like us, we've been saying, hey, the good stuff's been down here since day one. Yeah. I think it's fantastic that guys like you and him and these guys are, you know, Eduardo's actually working with Jill on her.
I know, I saw that. Yeah. Kansas City represents.
Yeah, I know, right? It's just so great because I think what it does, it allows, we have all these platforms now, right? With the podcasts and the TikToks and all this stuff where independent film has this huge opportunity to grab a hold of audiences that they've never been able to before. And so it makes me feel fantastic when I know guys like you are still making films out. So I got two more things to ask you, and then we're out the door, okay? Okay. First and foremost, what do you want people to take away from They Wait in the Dark after they see it?
I mean, absolutely want to take away. First of all, I want them to be creeped out. I want them to get some scares from it. Again, it's more of a sense of dread than it is jump scares. And obviously, we wanted to make sure that we didn't use any CGI. That was a big thing for me. I was just like, no CGI, please. Only like practical effects. I want people to be able to have something to talk about afterwards. I wanted to make a horror movie that at least sticks with you for a little while. Because I mean, so many movies we see, we forget about. Like, we enjoy them, but then they're like cotton candy and they just kind of disappear. So I wanted something where people are like talking about the different themes and have something that kind of, you know, a conversation afterwards. And I feel like that's important.
For sure. And then, of course, man, I love all this. I really appreciate your time, Patrick. It's great to actually talk to you. I know we could do it for hours, but what's coming up next for you, man? You got anything on the work that we should know about in our realm? I mean,
I have like
you out here working, so anything we should know about to keep on the radar?
Man, you know, I've got a couple of short films that I've done that they're going to start hitting the festival circuit. I always make short films because I'm too like I can't sit still. You know, it takes so long to get a feature film made. So I'm always doing little short films in between. I've got a bunch of like maybes right now. That's the thing, is it's like, you know, raising the financing and getting things going. You know, so hopefully something, you know, manifests here soon. I've got, like I said, 3 or 4 different feature films I'm kind of looking at right now. So
Okay, awesome. Well, sir, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it. They Wait in the Dark, we gave it a 3 out of 5 on Horror Movies Uncut because we really enjoyed the balancing of how you're able to weave this just tumultuous story once you find out what's really going on. And there's just so much more like anguish and dread that each character, even the young man in the film, has to go through while they're all being tormented from just every single direction, that I think it just provides layers that is going to really allow people to just settle in and just really get into the movie, man. So we enjoyed it. So appreciate you, Patrick. And we look forward to anything you got coming up.
All right, take care.
All right, awesome, man. So we want to thank Patrick once again for an incredible interview. It was so great to catch up with him and hear about how passionate he still is about the genre industry, especially when it comes to the independent genre industry, which I just feel like it's just so important to just kind of reiterate to people something that he was talking about in the interview, which is the budgets. I mean, it's one of the things that you guys got to remember. These people do not have the budgets of some of these larger studios, but the goal, the intent is one day someone with one of these budgets will find these talented people, and then boom, we'll get something in the forefront, right? All right, so moving on. American Cherry. All right, so American Cherry. So the reason why you may have been hearing about American Cherry is if you're a fan of the show Riverdale, you might be very familiar with a young man by the name of Denton. Is it Hunter Denton? I believe is his name. Hart Denton. Yes, Hart Denton. And then there is a very, very dark, twisted, romantic thriller coming out March 17th. And he stars in the film, and it's called American Cherry. So one of the things that I was just talking about on a podcast I was being interviewed on the other day was just how you need to have those films that kind of speak to that generation that's out during the time period of that film. Scream is one of those films. Dazed and Confused are these types of films. The Breakfast Club, all those John Hughes films from the 80s, those are all the films that I'm talking about. So you kind of get an understanding of what I mean by these films that speak to that particular generation that's watching the film. So a movie like American Cherry, it's funny because it's very, very like, there's so much stuff that resemble films that actually have names similar to like American Beauty and American Pie and all that stuff, because what you have is just that formula that I was talking about also in the podcast of a group of kids who are usually kind of going through something, and you're following individual stories, you're following romances, you're following just pretty much everything going on with this group of young kids, but then there's something dark, there's something sinister. And American Cherry, it happens to be Hart Denton's character. He kind of almost resembles a Christian Bale American Psycho flow, if you may, throughout the course of the movie. But I feel like if you're familiar with the film that starred Mark Wahlberg back in the day, where he was stalking the young lady, what was that movie called? It was like one word. Fear. Yeah, Fear. Feel like it's got a little bit of that kind of feel to it. Kind of like a teenage Basic Instinct, if you may. Like obsession is something that I think is very, very apparent throughout the course of the film. But yeah, so in a sense, what you got going on, so low income white America. So like I'm like Gummo, right? Xenia, Ohio, something like that. Just people who are like, maybe they worked at the mill or they had some factory job back in the day. I mean, we've seen these stories. We know these stories through and through. But what we don't usually see is what's going on with their kids. And I think that's what's so significant about American Cherry is you get a chance to actually see what's going on with the kids of these parents and how they're trying to figure it out themselves, even though they're lost, and they're using romance, they're using drugs, they're using, immature behavior to speak out, looking for attention, all types of stuff to make it seem like there's some relevance in their life. And that's the main thing that they're looking for and they're striving for in this film, American Cherry, we find a young man and a young woman who both have a dark side, and his may be a little bit more vocal, maybe a little bit more in your face, but you find out that it's a reason why the two of them have a bond, and that bond is very reminiscent of like a true romance bond between like Christian Slater and Arquette, or not True Romance, but what was the movie with? Well, True Romance, you had Christian Slater in there, but I'm thinking of Woody Harrelson, I believe, when they were the killers. Natural Born Killers, yes, Natural Born Killers. So like, it's almost like a innocent version of that, if you may, and I think that would really allow you to kind of feel what is going on. But it kind of has this like background and setting that you would find in a movie like Dazed and Confused or Stand By Me, or you know what I'm saying, something like that, something where you always see a father somewhere struggling with an alcohol addiction problem, or a mom struggling with a pill or alcohol addiction problem. These problems hit every single level, like no matter how much money you make, but you don't always get to see the stories coming from that low income, like white, poor family, unless you're watching something like Shameless, right? So all these elements are in American Cherry, and then we have another sinister element that I don't want to give away in the film, but I for sure think people should check it out. I think the young cast does a fantastic job. It's just a movie you can watch, you know. It's just because it's just going to remind you of so many movies. Heathers is a film, Mean Girls, like all those movies. I mean, like I don't have to say any more examples. I think you guys get what I'm talking about. That's American Cherry. We gave it a 3.5 out of 5. Definitely make sure you go check that out. The film's going to be out March 17th. It's directed and written by the very talented Marcella Centrinowicz, I don't know. And it stars Hart Denton, Sarah Mae Summers, who's fantastic in the movie, Audrey Holcomb, Larson Thompson, Maddie Carteropi or something. She was in Stranger Things. And Leonora Valeria, who was in Blade 2. So, awesome movie. I really liked it. Glad you guys are tuning in to another episode of the Submissions and Slashers podcast. We are episode number 39. We will be right back. We got a little bit more to dish out. We're going to be coming back talking about some other things, including House of a Thousand Corpses. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button right here on the YouTube page, or if you're listening and watching on Spotify, courtesy of the great folks over at Anchor FM. We'll be right back. Submissions and Slashers podcast, episode number 39. Don't go anywhere. Okay, welcome back to the Submissions and Slashers podcast, episode number 39. So we're talking about Jill Sixx's new film, and if you've been following the podcast and the news outlet at horrormoviesuncut.com, HMUNCUT.com, you will see that we've been teasing a couple things that we've been finding out coming from her social media platform. One thing about Miss Jill Sixx Gervagian is she's always been very busy and very active on social media. So it kind of makes my job easy. Even though we're good friends, and I can send her a text message bothering her. When that time comes, I definitely will do it. But I know she's always been very, very great at sending me any information and release information for her films. So not necessarily worried at all about missing anything coming out of the Jill Sixx tape camp. Very excited what I've been seeing so far, because what we've been seeing on her social media is these pictures of this very mysterious and creepy old house that must be on some old farmland right outside of Baltimore. She's even checked into Baltimore, so for sure there's something going on with that. While we still don't know any details other than what we've mentioned about the writers and producers that are attached to the project, there have been some casting photo parties and stuff like that that's been going on. Looks like there's a very young cast that's involved. So I'm excited, man. Like I'm looking for a blood count. I'm looking for Jill to do something just extraordinary. So can't wait to see what comes out. You can pop up on her IMDb page. There's really not anything on there talking about it. But if you want to make sure you are knowing what's going on with her, follow her at Jill6 on Twitter, or make sure you're following us, because we'll definitely give you guys some details anytime we get a chance. All right, folks, welcome back. So one of the films that is really, it's kind of funny to think that it's actually been 20 years since House of a Thousand Corpses has been released, and word came out. We posted something the other day, April 11th of 2023 is when there's like this nice cool little Blu-ray steel book that's being released out of Lionsgate, man, and all the artwork surrounding the entire 20-year anniversary release looks fantastic. Lionsgate never holds off. I was just saying this yesterday. Lionsgate, they always do a great job of like their marketing and surrounding their films with stuff to really engage the audience, even if their films might not be, fantastic. But I think, like last year, you had films like Fall and other things that I thought were really, really good. So Lionsgate really, I think they're staying solid with what they're doing as just always being one of the top like genre distributors out there. It's like Lionsgate's IFCs, Magnet Releasings, they all kind of have their own little place in the world if you hear it from me, right? All right, so what we got is House of a Thousand Corpses, 20 years. Let me go ahead and just give you guys the 23-year-old version of Travis Brown reviewing A House of a Thousand Corpses after he saw it in the theater. Let's see. It's probably not too different than where it is right now. It's probably right here. Probably had an Ed Gein shirt on or something like that, right? And somebody was like, all right, Travis, what did you think about that new Rob Zombie movie? And I'm like, man, you know what? Like, the only thing that I don't like about the film is it clearly was biting, because we were saying biting back then, even 20 years ago. It clearly was biting everything that, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre and like the Town That Dreaded Sundown. Like, it really was like stealing a lot of stuff from that to make it like this weird slasher movie. And then like the family stuff, it was kind of weird. Like it seemed like I was watching like a little bit of Big Bad Mama, only to find out later that like so much influence from Big Bad Mama created the Firefly family, back to 23-year-old Travis. So like I didn't really care for it. I thought it was kind of lame. I didn't really think that it really held up, and there's so many better movies out right now to watch. I'll have to Google something to see what was out that time, right? But that was the 23-year-old Travis saying that I didn't really like Rob Zombie's film. And really, the thing that I always say is guys like Rob Zombie, Jordan Peele, and all these guys, man, it's just like I just feel like they're just... That's why I do love guys like James Wan and some of these other people who, Lucky McGee, some of these other people like Patrick, these other people who just like they have their foot and like they're just like, nah, man, like this is our, like we have our, we're not stealing shit, man. We are making our shit and for other people to steal. And like guys like Rob Zombie and Jordan Peele and them, it just really irks the hell out of me when I know the influence, I know the money, I know the resources, and I know the passion that they have for genre films. It's just like when you watch the film with the flying orifices, or you see that Rob Zombie turns Michael Myers' mom into a prostitute when she's really a fucking saint, probably. You start to question, where are we going with all this stuff? Is it about shock factor or whatever? I hated House of a Thousand Corpses and still do. I'm going to watch it though. I am going to watch it because it's been, for me, it's for sure hasn't been 20 years. I still introduce a lot of films to a lot of people, even if I don't like the film. So it's not been 20 years for me seeing it. It's probably been maybe 15 years or something since I've seen it. So I'm going to watch it. Very curious to see how it stacks up. Other than that, yeah, I just really don't think it's going to be any different. Lords of Salem, I loved. The Devil's Rejects, I was a fan of. So, I mean, like, I've been a fan of this entire world that Rob Zombie's created for multitude of reasons, but I've been more disappointed and let down than I've been excited by anything he's done. And House of a Thousand Corpses just kicked that off, like, instantly, you know? So, yeah. Still to this day, not the biggest fan of the film, but hey, man, 20 years, man, wow, right? And it was so big news when it came out because of who was making the film. But I just love that time. I mean, I love that time period. I love where I was at in regards to wanting to dig a little bit deeper into horror films and not just be the fan sitting there watching it. Trying to help some other people understand what they're watching, trying to bridge some gaps between mainstream audiences and like more of your traditional like solid horror fan bases. So, and I still feel like I'm doing that to this day. So, hey, what I will say is 20 years ago, films like House of a Thousand Corpses helped start my career in regards to writing about films and doing what I'm doing right here today. So, thank you, Rob Zombie. How about that? We'll be back, and we got another review for you coming up. Don't you go anywhere. We're going to be talking about Sound of Silence and some other things to wrap up the show very soon. Submissions and Slashers, episode 39. Hit that subscribe button. Don't go nowhere. We'll be back. All right, welcome back. So I believe there was a Beastie Boys song back in the day. Was it Sound of Silence? It's the sound of silence. No, I'm totally... I'm butchering that, I think, sound. The Sounds of Science. Yeah, Sounds of Science. Yeah. Yeah. It was on Paul's Boutique. Yeah, that's right. The Sounds of Silence. Yeah, so I had that right. It's the Sounds of Science. Okay. So that's why I had to do that. Sorry. When I first heard of the film, that was the first thing that popped in my head because I'm just like a weirdo like that. But, XYZ, they've teamed up with the fellas T3. That's Alessandro, Antonacci, Stefano, Madala, and Daniel Lascar. And they are originally from Italy. This film actually has... a lot of Italian in the film, but it has English subtitles. But most of the people in the film do speak English, and that's Sound of Silence. So, Sound of Silence is a terrifying little film that uniquely reminds me of things you would see in like old episodes of The Twilight Zone and Outer Limits, where there is some type of device or apparatus that has a malevolent spirit trapped inside, and of course the spirit gets let out. So think Evil Dead, think pretty much every like Japanese horror film, which I think Sound of Silence is probably the best thing to compare it to. So if you are like fans of the films that come from the Pacific, like your original Grudges, Ju-On's, One Missed Calls, and all those things that we talk about so much on the show, because you guys know how much I love them, you will really, really dig Sound of Silence. It kind of almost plays out just like it, and to the point where I was very surprised because I actually really enjoy Italian horror films. Giallo films are probably one of my favorite types of genres of films, the whodunit slasher movies from the 70s and 80s and 60s. But, you really don't see too many of those being made anymore unless it's like, the more American, I Know What You Did Last Summer type style of the film that we saw so big when Scream and all those films came out. And it's so funny. I mean, I'm not surprised that, Ghostface is still around. Even though they tried a lot of stuff with I Know What You Did Last Summer to bring it back with the TV show that was on Hulu and everything. So, but that formula is out there. But with the film like Sound of Silence, it's definitely more of what you would see in Asian cinema. Is a young lady getting called back to Italy because her mother and father There's something that's happened in the house. Father ends up in the hospital. The people there are worried about the interaction between the mother and the father, but the mother is letting the daughter know that there is definitely something else in the midst, and she does not want her daughter going back to that house whatsoever. So what does she do? She goes right to the house. What else would she do, right? So once she gets there, then you start to, she starts to experience what you find out in the early stages of the film, which sets up so many great scare points. And I think that's one of the things that the T3 crew, I feel like they were successful with what they were trying to accomplish with the atmosphere, the setting, the way the lighting was set up, on how they were trying to scare people. And then adding in that audio, adding in those noises, adding in those things that really made you start to question what she was dealing with, or what they were dealing with these spirits. I feel like really is going to do so much to the public, where they'll really get a kick out of this, and it'll be really scary for a lot of people. Now, I do feel like there are some moments that might lose people, that might make them want to not really give this film its proper due. But I feel like simple is sometimes better. It's something that I've been saying for the last couple days to so many people, because it's a phrase that I keep hearing from voices of people who've passed away, like Steve Jobs. I'm hearing stuff like that, on different podcasts and reading and commercials and stuff like that. And I think it even makes sense here too, because the film itself is very simple, but it's complex on how it was set up. But when you sit back and you watch it, it just creates exactly what you want out of a classic supernatural, ghost film. What's gonna hurt it is too very, very, very similar to your Asian culture film. So I can't wait to talk to T3 coming up later this week, and they'll be on next week's podcast, so you'll actually get a chance to talk to them. Make sure you check out my review when it comes out, and then make sure you go and check out the article that we posted about the film's release with the trailer. It's one of the ones you for sure want to see, I think, in regards to just a straight up classic horror film. All right? So what we're going to do is come back, give a couple thoughts on the Banshees of Inisherin and Tar cleaning up house at the Santa Barbara International Film Festival, give you what's coming out this week and what you should be paying attention to, and then that be it, folks. Episode 39 in the books, just like that. Once again, thanks to Patrick Rhea, but we'll be back to wrap it all up. Submissions and Slashers Podcast. Hit that subscribe. All right, folks, once again, thanks for checking out this episode of the Submissions and Slashers Podcast. Make sure you're hitting those subscribe buttons. Make sure you give us some feedback. Let us know what you think of the show, how we can improve. We're always looking to get better. My main goal and focus with this show is just to give you guys some quick nuggets of information, and also kind of give you some updates on some trends and some things that I kind of see going on in horror and what I think you should be paying attention to, right? So anyway, check out what's going on with the Santa Barbara International Film Festival. Wow, seems like they had extraordinary event, closing night films going on right now. I believe it's called Like Me, or I Like Me. This festival, while they don't really cater too much to the genre specific, there are a couple things that will make its way through. Jamie Lee Curtis has been nominated for many awards and given many awards at this festival. Michelle Yeoh, Angela Bassett, ladies who have just made a career in and out of genre films, have been all just celebrated at the 2023 festival. So big shout to Jess out at Accolade PR for sending me all the information and all the stuff that's going on at the festival. It looks like it's been a great time, and I'll be honest, man, I want to go. You got Abigail Breslin out there, Andy Garcia, Luke Wilson. It just seemed like and Angela Bassett, Michelle Yeoh, all these other people were there. But it was great to see Colin Farrell and those guys, Mike Madonna, everybody, behind the film Tar and the film The Banshee of Inisherin. Looks like they cleaned house out there, and it makes sense when you see how well they're doing in the nominations for the Academies, right? Like I've told people, I saw actually the world premiere of the Banshees. I loved it. I thought it was fucking hilarious. It's for sure not going to be for everyone. I'm waiting on someone to come back in town tomorrow, actually, so we can finally watch Tar, because I've been holding off on watching Tar for the longest time, and I really can't anymore because I love Cate Blanchett, and I know how vicious this film was for some people, so I'm really interested in seeing Tar. Because it's something that I've been waiting way too long to see. I just saw Black Panther finally, like a couple weeks ago. Oh, and I saw Ant-Man, though. I did see Ant-Man. I took my son to see Ant-Man yesterday, and it was a lot of fun, man. Jonathan Majors, hey, I'm calling it out right now. People's Sexiest, whoever does it. It's either People's Magazine or Time. They do the Sexiest Man of the Year. Guarantee you him and them lips are going to be on there, dog. Like, the dude is showing off them lips too much. I mean, he's like LL Cool J times 5 right now. With them lips and everything. He's like in every photo of him. I can't even do it. You know what I'm saying? Like those are like, you gotta have his fucking lips to do it, pretty much. So like big ups to him though. He was great in the film. Of course, Paul Rudd, everybody else, Michelle Pfeiffer, and everybody was so great in the film. So I want you guys definitely to check it out. But what I want you guys to also know about, let's see, is what's coming out this week. So Tuesday, looks like we got a couple things hitting VOD, Blu-ray, and DVD. The Long Dark Trail. I believe I saw The Long Dark Trail. Let's see. Who is in this? Abusive father, unite their mother. Yeah, kind of looks familiar. Some weird brother stuff. We'll move on from there. What else is coming out this week for you to know? The Retaliators. Retaliators was fun. You know, it's one of those films that really stayed out there in that festival circuit for a while. We have a review up from, God, was it Grimfest? I believe it's one of the Grimfests. We have a review up for it, so you can check it out. Coming out Tuesday, February 21st. The Price We Pay. This is a great film. Let's see. Who is the main person in this film? Emile Hirsch. Yeah, so Steven Dorff, Emile Hirsch, Gigi Zumbato, The Price We Pay. Another thing that I think Lionsgate might have put out for a while too. Way darker than expected. Some people trying to screw over a couple old people, and the old people get their asses back. And then, I mean, it's just, you know, it's like everything that could go wrong type of film, you know? If you get what I mean by that. Everything that could go wrong type of film. The Strays, which is a film that I'm actually getting ready to watch tomorrow. That's going to be making its premiere on Netflix on Wednesday, February 22nd. So we got a little Netflix love going on. And The Strays, while doesn't seem like it's making the most noise right now, because some people are starting to see it. I don't think they're really liking it too much. There is one review out for it. Ashley Madekwe. I mean, it's just one of these films that I think that, you know, Netflix bought. It's about a black woman who moves into like a privileged lifestyle, and everything is completely fine until some weird neighbors show up and start treating her a little bit different. And, you know, it's one of those things that like Jordan Peele's in a sense trying to do with some of his films, I think, but just way more outrageous, where it's just this like social commentary, right? And I think one of the things that we do need to start talking about is African-American people with money. So every single movie that we've ever seen about like a rich family being tormented by some demonic presence. Like, think The Exorcist. I mean, they lived in a prestigious, like, Georgetown neighborhood and stuff like that. We need to see that with black families and stuff. Now, of course, the ongoing joke is they would not be dealing with this shit, but come on now. Let's go ahead and make it happen, right? Got my red Solo cup. All right, so that's what's coming out on Netflix February 22nd. Netflix is busy on Friday with We Have a Ghost, which is going to be more of a comedy. And the trailer for both of these have been on Netflix for a second. This is actually starring what's his face from Anthony Mackie, and David Harbour is in there, Jennifer Coolidge. So this is your like comedy horror film of like the year, more than likely, right off the bat. You know, We Have a Ghost, and it looks like it's definitely more of a family feel good type of thing. So this is gonna be this is like the horror movie that even though like my son can totally watch Hellraiser and stuff like that with me, these are those like family horror films, okay? So We Have a Ghost is something for you to watch with the entire family on Netflix if you want to on Friday, right? Okay, wrapping that up, what else we got? Bunker on VOD February 24th, so also on Friday. That's going to be a little bit more extreme. And then, of course, hitting theaters this Friday, which there's screeners all this week. I know a lot of people are starting to get a chance to see it, is that Cocaine Bear. And, you know, with Cocaine Bear, like I told you guys, I'm not going to go see it in theaters. I will eventually watch it. I know I'm going to be at home probably when I watch it. But yeah, it's just not, I'm not going to be able to do the Cocaine Bear in the theaters. And actually I have a couple screeners I could go see like tomorrow if I wanted to. But that's something for everybody else. So I'm just happy that these guys are putting this movie out for people to enjoy and watch. Okay. So anyway, that's what you need to know. That's episode 39. We are the Submissions and Slashers podcast. Make sure you follow us at all those outlets at HMU, NUC, UT. We are on TikTok. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Make sure you are hitting that subscribe button if you are listening to the podcast, either on YouTube or on Spotify. You can watch it on both, courtesy of our fellas and ladies at anchor.fm. We will holler at you next time, folks. I hope you enjoyed that interview. Once again, thank you, Patrick. Thank you, Daniela, everybody behind the scenes that made that interview happen. Look for me to be reaching out to some other journalists pretty soon, having them on the show so we can politic and talk about stuff. And look for your boy on a podcast himself here in the next few days. Talk to you next time, people. We out.